Let's execute an immediate high-gear tactical vector shift away from the asphalt-bound wanderings of rogue lone wolf vigilantes and off-grid highway drifters and plunge directly into the cold, calculation-heavy tracking grids of dedicated homicide investigation bureaus, deep-cover municipal corruption patterns, and the deeply atmospheric world of the Pacific Northwest forensic analysis. We are crossing the threshold directly into the rain-slicked pavement grids of Seattle, dark police interrogation bays, and the lethal behavioral parameters of a relentless investigator with her final breath. The exceptional, pulse-pounding second structural deployment anchoring the globally dominant multi-million-copy best-selling Tracy Crosswhite series by the absolute undisputed sovereign of elite procedural, legal, and crime suspense, Robert Dugoni. This high-stakes narrative tracking sequence delivers a thrilling look at an operational crossroads where a terrifyingly precise serial killer target profile, a toxic web of systemic police department secrets, and an absolute defense of an elite female detective's survival metrics collide at terminal velocity. Let's lay out the strategic narrative grid. If you are a fan of high-octane, slow-burn investigative thrillers where a battle-tested, hyper-observant female homicide detective must navigate an absolute maze of internal political sabotage, hidden dark web tradecraft networks, and a deadly ring of active street-level executioners while running a blind survival loop inside a compromised urban precinct ecosystem where an analytical mind uses deep geographical profiling, timeline reconstruction, and absolute psychological stamina to outmaneuver an institutional cover-up, and where the author utilizes an incandescent cold case echo unearthing a lethal modern predator diagnostic routine to test our hero's structural survival perimeters, this book is engineered to lock you in. Dugoni completely dominates the metropolitan procedural noir dynamic, capturing the heart-racing intellectual momentum, suffocating department paranoia, and heavy psychological depth popularized by genre varks like Michael Connelly, Karen Slaughter, Lisa Gardner, and John Sanford, while treating realistic forensic ballistics, complex electronic phone data tracking, and protective law enforcement field safety with absolute technical mastery. The narrative tracking grid zeroes in on the brilliant analytical baseline of Detective Tracy Crosswhite, a masterfully calculated force within the Seattle PD Crimes Against Persons Unit, operating under a severe calculation-heavy handicap of residual personal trauma and administrative skepticism. Behind her meticulous forensic file logs and downtown precinct footprints lies an intricate matrix of hidden bureaucratic rivalries, heavily guarded police archive networks, and tense, high-stakes tactical counter-surveillance operations. Her collective defense mechanisms are locked down tight behind a lifetime of battling for justice, her entire analytical focus strictly consumed by monitoring sudden institutional threat vectors, parsing complex serial signature evidence, and shielding her vulnerable tracking network from being entirely wiped out by a ruthless political or criminal offensive. The spark ignites when an unexpected, high-frequency structural anomaly breaches her active scanning perimeter. A series of brutal, highly staged killings targeting vulnerable sex workers begins to completely paralyze the metropolitan area. The killer leaves a chilling, hyper-specific calling card that mirrors a notorious, decades-old string of unsolved Seattle cold cases, an active signature loop known in the historical archives as the work of the cowboy. The official diagnostic metrics of the department's tracking centers flash white-hot when Tracy unearths evidence that the original historical case files were intentionally manipulated, pointing to a massive, long-hidden systemic cover-up stretching directly into the upper echelons of the city's political and judicial leadership. The standard boundaries of an orderly municipal investigation crumble, and our central protagonist runs completely out of standard diplomatic escape vectors. She is thrust directly into an active, invisible war across the rainy cityscape, where corrupt police administrators, highly dangerous underworld fixers, and a calculation-heavy serial executioner launch aggressive countermeasures to permanently suppress her truth-seeking data stream. The tactical parameters instantly explode as her historical and survival warfare turns completely active, transforming the dark industrial shipyards, remote mountain cabins, and sterile judicial courtrooms of Washington into a volatile psychological pressure cooker and a physical battle zone. Our veteran survivalist investigator is forced to deploy her massive intuitive tradecraft, environmental mapping skills, and raw legal procedural stamina to maintain her perimeter before the killer's cleanup forces close the trap. When deceptive internal affairs directors, corrupted database files, and calculation-heavy digital tracking sweeps launch aggressive plays to delete her witness trail, her survival instincts engage her final deployment tracks. Every midnight warehouse stakeout, every silent choice to follow a dangerous lead into a pitch-black alleyway with dismatched backup screens, and every intense moment of channeling raw, precision police tradecraft chips away at her reliance on original institutional rules. What follows is an exceptional, high-stakes war of perspective, tactical position, and raw human grit. We watch the corrupt department empire's deceptive perimeters completely unwrapped as Dugoni reveals that the true victory requires more than just making a standard arrest or processing routine evidence bags. It demands an absolute, uncompromising defense of systemic truth, victim advocacy, and individual survival against a cold, calculating administrative machine. While our central characters smooth over each other's psychological and defensive blind spots with devastating analytical force, a brutal series of close-quarters practical confrontations and high-stakes evidentiary breakthroughs shifts the clock into its terminal phase, proving that historical emotional hazards have tracked them to their final outpost. To survive the impending locked-with trap and permanently secure her investigative authority, our resilient heroine must unleash an absolute, unyielding defense of her final boundary lines. It is a police procedural suspense, serial killer crime thriller, institutional corruption drama, high-velocity legal noir masterpiece that treats deep criminological logistics and intense structural friction with elite precision. The tension here burns with a sharp, calculation-heavy intensity. We are talking about that high-frequency, one hidden evidence log triggers a fatal precinct cleanup energy, where a sudden pause during an active suspect interrogation, an unexpected shift in an adversary's protective physical posture during a high-stakes tactical raid, or a heavy, possessive realization that an elite killer in the system has completely mapped your personal vulnerabilities carries massive structural weight. Dugoni writes with an exceptionally fresh, vivid, and beautifully blunt voice, perfectly capturing the cold, metallic slide of a Glock pistol, the oppressive, heavy atmosphere of a rain-slicked crime scene under police floodlights, and the distinct, subtle scent of wet wool, coffee shop espresso, old leather notebooks, fingerprint powder, damp concrete, and pure, unadulterated suspense. What truly elevates this second franchise entry into elite territory is the author's unmatched ability to balance realistic legal courtroom mechanics and genuine high-stakes homicide division tradecraft alongside a breathtaking narrative pace and deep conceptual hooks. Our protagonists don't rely on unbelievable, superficial Hollywood superhero action tropes. Their immense situational intelligence, strategic patience, and profound survival instincts match the complexity of the chaotic modern corporate and governmental underworld they dominate step for step, making their choices to risk everything feel profoundly authentic and deeply gripping. The pacing moves with calculated momentum, tracking intense conversational standoffs and breathtaking personal breakthroughs before ratcheting up to an absolute jaw-dropping conclusion that delivers total, hard-earned advancement to their horizon. Her final breath is the definitive, pro-level upgrade your high-stakes detective fiction and dark procedural suspense library demands right now. It is elegant, immensely fast-paced, and utterly unputdownable. It proves that when your entire sanctuary is targeted by a cold, calculating administrative monster, the most revolutionary play you can execute is to lock your perimeters, trust your elite survival training, and fight like hell alongside your network to rewrite the data. So secure your personal reading sanctuary, review your emotional defensive perimeters, open your Kindle, and prepare to track the evidence.